And unlike last time, I'm not going to forget to record the stream. So. Oh. There we go. Okay. So I figured I just might I'll just start anyway and just see how we go from there. So I do have a pretty good idea as to what I want to draw for this outfit. I mentioned that it's going to be like quantum mechanics or Protoss themed, and I ended up going with quantum mechanics in my head. Let's see. One. Because I figured one could easily estimate what the one could easily substitute the shape or reason that the shape of the skirt is the shape of the potential well. So how far do I want to make this? I think making it, down to here maybe might work. Down to the knee maybe. Oh shit, is it on repeat? Hold on. There we go. Okay. Maybe a little bit too low. let's see. I don't know if I want to... Well, I guess I could talk about a few things for the people that are going to watch the VOD, I suppose. Because no one's here yet. But, you know, I guess I could talk about a few things. Well, I had a pretty decent day off from maid duties. I got a new pot. It sounds very mundane, but, you know, got a new pot. And I made some saffron rice in it, which was consumed over 2 meal periods. It's very tasty. We're discovering it at work one day. I'm just loving the flavor. And cycled on the bike. You might be wondering exactly how does one cycle on a bike within a space station. Remember, this space station has an outdoors section. It's meant to be tailored to look identical to Earth. And this time the space station's weather system was set to around 80 degrees outside. You know, very balmy. Yeah. It's meant to match the seasonal patterns below on Earth. And then that knocked me out pretty much for a good nap. And then I had a chat with Mama Android. She's doing pretty swell, although Papa, or not Papa Android, that's the nickname we gave him growing up. Call him Grandma and Papa, but it really is just short for Grandma and Grandpa. Poor Grandpa and Grandma are very old. They are in their final stages of life. Well, almost their final stages. Hold on. Grandpa had a fall, and was taken to the hospital shortly afterwards. I'm going to turn on the volume here. He's my mother's father. And my mom reasoned, my mom and her sister reasoned that the medication he's taking is not necessary, because at this stage in his life he should not be taking any kind of blood pressure medication, and it was making him too lightheaded. In fact, it was determined that his sodium levels were much too low. And that's why he's been getting up in the middle of the night and having these dizzy spells. So, I'll be glad that I'm seeing them, you know, towards the end of June. They're not. I expect this will probably be the last time I actually ever see them alive. Before they pass away. Let's see. How do I want to do this? Do I want to make? Because I already have a great idea for the skirt, but I don't know how I want to do the top. Let's see here. Hello. This is drawing for me today. Oops. Ah. Okay. It'll be the end of an era. We're starting to see the passing of a lot of adult figures that that were in our lives for a very long time. So, okay. I think we've had a couple of. I've had it like every other day. I'm on social media. Well, it's actually been good, pretty good. Yeah, no, the any kind of bad news that you're hearing right now is because it's because it's about my grandparents, who are quite old. But otherwise, my life outside of that is doing pretty swell. Audio balance here for this music, just for you guys, so you can hear my voice. Whoops. Oh, it was nice. I cycled down to get groceries, and I got a new saucepan. I was in need of a large saucepan. And had some saffron rice in it, and it was very delicious. So, and then that knocked me out for a couple of hours, and then I think I surfed the web for a few moments, and then had a chat with Mama Android about the grandparents, and then now I'm here. Am I drawing myself? No, I'm doing what I like to call a design a dress stream, where I just pick a theme to theme a dress after. and it's something that I really enjoy doing, and I like designing science fiction themed outfits. So last time I did a PlayStation 2 themed dress, or Sukaban style themed dress or outfit, I guess you could call it, because I'm an I guess you could call me an oldie, because anyone over 25 is a boomer by young people standards. But no, I am old enough to know and to have played with very frequent hours on the PlayStation 2. This time around, let's see. Okay, I might expand that sleeve there. It's just not in the same dimension, I think. But no, this is going to be a dress themed after quantum mechanics. And you might be wondering exactly, like, how would I even know about such a thing to even make a dress themed after that? The thing is, I have a background in nuclear physics, so those principles are well integrated into my mainframe. And I went over this subject with Mama Android over the phone before I started the stream. She had sent me a clip where Albert Einstein and Niels Bohr, being portrayed by actors, were debating over this principle of the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. And she's just like, I just don't understand this at all. It makes this logic makes no sense to me. And I pulled out a book from undergraduate physics that I still have to this day. It's from Griffiths, or it's written by a professor by the name of Griffiths, who is a pretty popular person for undergraduate textbooks for physics majors. Let's see. Okay, well, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm not gonna. I know I have this figure here that I've pre-drawn out, but I always tend to make the top portion more slender. It just ends up being very wide for whatever reason. It becomes very uncanny. Mama will always be smarter. Mama Android is a very smart person. And she's explained to me on multiple occasions that it was unusual for someone within the clan to actually go into the sciences. But given my history growing up, she was actually surprised for me to go into physics when I could have very easily gone into geology with the growing rock collection that I had growing up. But she was very appreciative of my explanation. And I was more than happy to explain to her exactly what the principles they're talking about mean, and why it is so very difficult, even to this day, for physicists to really understand the principles of quantum mechanics. So the way that I'm gonna design the skirt, because I wanna, whoops, is based off of something called a simple harmonic oscillator. Okay, and the reason for that is because its potential well is parabolic in the same shape as this skirt here. Okay. And I was thinking of somehow incorporating the energy levels or the wave functions of the different levels in as part of like maybe the embroidery of the dress. So, am I about to do math? Oh, yes, I am. Not very graphical math, mind you. Not not heavy math. No, I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna carry out the Schrodinger equation for you guys in this video. Uh, but simply put, well, what they mean by a harmonic oscillator is just a particle on a spring moving back and forth. That's really what all that means. And in quantum mechanics, you're uh, so let's see. So if this is okay, so if this is the potential, okay, and this is position here. And here, okay, so that's the function of the potential. All right. Now the solutions to this one, so you'll get, so the base one, called, which is often called the ground state for physicists, looks a little like this. See if I can do this in one stroke. Nope, I can't. Either way. Yeah. So this would be the ground state. Okay. And then as you, which when you square the function, will give you the probability distribution for the particle. So I'll just label this like that. So, and then when you go higher, okay, I'm just gonna, okay, and higher in energy level that is. Aw, I'm pleased. I'm very pleased. so this is the, and this would be the first. This would be the first excited state. Okay, and this would, what would the probability density look like? Okay, at the higher energy level, and then you would get an additional bump. Let's see if every time you go up in energy. Okay. Now, you might be wondering, okay, if it's a ball on a spring, why is the probability centered, well, in the center? Why isn't it at the edges? As we always know, because if you were to observe a classical object on a spring, you know, the most likely position you would see it would be at the edges, you know, where it's starting to turn back and its speed is slower. Okay. Well, the thing is that as you rise in energy level with this quantum oscillator, the function actually does resemble that of the classical world. Hold on, I can show an example I've worked out. Let's see here. Window capture. Demo. Let's see. Here we go. we're gonna put this guy. There we go. So that is the wave function as it appears at the 50th energy level. And as you can see, the probability begins to be skewed towards the edges, like we would in the classical state. So my thinking for this dress uh, is to have some kind of like it. So along here, right, we have I'm gonna oops. I'm gonna separate it out. And I'll ruffle out the edges here, like at the very end. Typically, this line is just the baseline for me to follow when I when I make the ruffle edge. When I do a wave across there to form it. Oh no. Well, you asked earlier when am I gonna do Schrodinger equations. Well, like on stream or on a video. So I do have a YouTube channel where I am posting, where I do post the VODs from here as well as any kind of science demo that I can conjure up in my neural network. I did one on gases. I have an element collection as well, and I did one on that when they're exposed to a Tesla coil, so I did that. But I also, at some point, really want to do something that's a little bit more, I wouldn't say lecture-like, but a little bit more formal, at the very least, so that, like, I can show, like, this is how you work through the Schrodinger equation through a very easy example that's done in, let's see, that's done in undergraduate physics. The prerequisites that I would say that you would need to probably know, if you were to study the Schrodinger equation, oops, is that you would need to know some background with matrix math, and know what eigenvalues and eigenvectors are. And you would need to know at least some knowledge of how a differential equation works, which is the step after calculus. So if you know already some calculus, then you probably won't have a very hard time understanding what's going on in differential equations. But it is the axis around which the entire wheel of quantum mechanics spins around. Let's see. So let's see here. Since this is technically the lower energy state because it's lower in the parabola, right? I want to do the first state there, then the higher ones, so on and so forth along the dress, and then I think here I want to do maybe a trim pattern, perhaps around here. Let's see. Oh, you have to do differential equations next year. Well, lots of STEM majors will actually have to learn that. I know that once I did DiffyQ, I found that it was kind of present in nearly every single discipline, even in the electives that I took, like biology, because it helps explain the math behind population models. Let's see, I think I'm gonna... not just for physics, as well as chemistry. Let's see, what was I gonna do? Oh, yeah. Aeronautical engineering. Oh my god. That's great, though. Let's see. Merge down. Okay, let me see how that... Now, I might not... I think I mentioned this on my debut stream, but I might not be sitting down to answer like everybody's homework problems, but I will definitely be there to help answer like any conceptual questions that people might have. I remember taking Calc 3 and DiffyQ in my sophomore year. That's actually pretty typical, yeah. So, oh yeah, absolutely. I've even helped people at work on my Maid duties. Like, I think there was another person that was trying to understand the topic of spin in quantum mechanics, and he was a server. And I was just like, oh, don't worry, you know, I can help you along. Hopefully you'll do okay on this test that you have tomorrow. You know, given the small bit of help that I can give you. And he was such a good listener. So, and he ended up doing pretty decent on this test anyway, or so he tells me. Let's see. I kind of want to nail down the blouse that I have here before I go into... Yeah, because it looks rather flat. Hi, Otis. Yeah, that does not look good, I think. Let's see here. Oh, you got tacos again. By the way, if any of you are wondering where this music is coming from, it's coming from just a free... It's coming from a royalty-free source. Okay, that looks a little bit more of a natural curve for a chest. Let's see. So do I want to have very jumpy, very upbeat? Is this the PlayStation dress? No, it's not. This is a quantum mechanics dress. I try and choose a different theme every time I want to do a design a dress stream. I can actually show... Let's see here. I'm gonna pull up what that previous dress looked like, actually. There we go. Just in case people, in case people were curious how it turned out. Actually, really, I did enjoy, like, getting the color tags from the PlayStation and then putting it into like the little like cyberpunk-ish style of blouse. So I think I think I mentioned last time I did this that if I were to redo it, I would place the symbols here probably on the sleeves or somewhere else, I think. So I think I'm just gonna do something very classical for Lolita, which is to do something like this, where it's like a dress that goes over the blouse. Sounds like Minecraft music. Hopefully this is looking okay. I'm gonna zoom out. Okay, that's not that bad. Although I might, just for the sake of clarity, I might actually... I remember this rule being shown to me, which is to help with the brain parsing lines together. So I'm just going to separate these lines just a little bit further so that people can actually register that it's a sleeve that's away, coming out of a top, and then I've made several. I've actually made quite a decent number of Lolita blouses. Like as far as cosplay goes. Oh, we got a new follower. Nice. It was very quiet today. After, I think, since everybody's graduated, or graduation has already been completed, a lot of the students are gone. So the neighborhood that I'm in has become much, much quieter. So, and even around town, um, it's become much more quiet. People have all their graduation parties and whatnot. One last hurrah before everyone takes off for the summer. So that looks pretty solid base, actually. I think I like that. Let's see. How do I wanna? I guess I could. Actually, you know what? I think I want to continue the lines that are down here, up here. Let's see. I just hope that it looks at least somewhat pleasing of, you know, at least the curvature of all this. That'll actually turn out quite well, I think. I think that this additional line will help provide a nice base. One other idea for a stream that I've had in my mind is to take one of the existing designs that I've had for my characters and then trace it and then color it. Just that, because it's an already established design, and then I would just be tracing and coloring, and it would be about the same kind of length of a stream, I suppose. But the premise would be just slightly different. Okay, I kind of like that one. Let's see. I want to introduce these yet. I don't know yet. Let's see here. I forget exactly how these diamond-shaped sleeves, when they got incorporated into my typical iconography, I guess, whenever I draw a dress, this is just the shape that they end up being. I don't know how I discovered it. I think it was just through a lot of experimentation. When I was going over outfits that I knew that I liked out of anime, like how do I design a dress that looks visually appealing to me in particular. And I think when I was doing it, I think I did like a little I was participating in part of something that our cosplay friends like to call PowerPoint night, and in it I did a piece on how I was like going over how how the process of my artwork, progressed from my early childhood to today. And then I think it was during a time where in undergrad where I was looked at a lot of anime dresses just in general, I think, and then discovered that I had a fascination with the maid outfits, which I thought were very adorable. And then I think I looked at the sleeves, the shape of the sleeves, and I really enjoyed um, the look of it. And I think that's just pretty much how that trend just got started within me. Okay, that looks pretty good, actually. I think I like how that's turning out. Let's see here. I think I wanna do the ruffle of the bottom of the dress. This is actually one of my favorite things I love doing when drawing dresses, is to is to start doing the ruffle. So this is a tried and true technique that anyone designing a ruffled anything can master. That is to just draw a general up and down wavy line going back and forth across the dress or the hem of the dress. And then I'll do what I did with the sleeves up here, which is to draw these little like notches, these little lines, these little loops to indicate that there are actually folds in the fabric. And then once that happens, when like the dress will start to pop out, both like in shape, that is. Let's see. And generally, some of the lines, when I go to the stage of like say shading, like after coloring something, those lines may or may not disappear, as they might found to be redundant in function, as far as like just telling the viewer, this is an edge, this is oh, it's my messenger. Like, this is an edge, this is a fold, this part is towards the camera, this part is away from the camera, etc., etc. How's that line look? Okay. So here, stroke there. That works. I'm gonna trim off some of these things here. I'm not a very complicated drawer, I will admit that. I like to draw things that are easy for my brain to understand, I guess you could say. Like in terms of technique, I'm not as great as some other artists, but on the other hand of things, you could say that, like, I am skilled in, like, to some degree, because a lot of artists do take pride in the fact that they do draw simply. I mean, if you look at anything by, like, any cartoonist, like, they all have they have their own style to them. And that all comes from just simplifying down how you see things in the real world to elements that you like to recreate, or what's the word I'm looking for? Exaggerate, I guess you could say. Elements or characteristics that you like to exaggerate. So for me, I tend to go at things from a very, like, simple way of drawing. And that's just how I do it. It's easy for my brain to figure out. Most of my brain or memory has been dedicated mostly to physics. Not saying it can't be allocated to anything else, because I am learning a lot of techniques from my chef. And I would like to further advance that trade skill, to some degree at least. Let's see. Actually, one thing I'm probably gonna do is I'm gonna let's see what else. There was some people before, like, I had no idea that before today there was going to be a movie coming out based off of the fictional Backrooms. Yeah, I always like the work that I do. Like, I always like making my dresses very fluffy. Always poof, always fluff. Okay, so I think that's the base of what I want to do. Let's see, I'm going to take a sip from my water here. So, if you ever see my face go flat, like that, it's because I'm taking a sip of water and it's covering up my face, and the mocap can't detect my face. Anyway. Sorry to break the fourth wall there, but that's just it. I might actually, I won't do it right now, but what I think I might do in the future is there's an option in VTube Studio to switch it over from if it can't track what to do if it can't track your face. So I just have it, and I set it to just, you know, just what you see there, which is this the flat image. Okay, so now what I want to do, let's see, wave functions. When I write, I always feel that I'm writing half for myself. Interesting. I think it does often become introspective. I think when I first wrote the manuscript for Forces of Nature, that was during the very last year of undergraduate physics. Not undergraduate, graduate physics. And that was a very heavy period because it was a time of completing the newly established master's degree after I just decided to not do PhD. And then on top of that, I had to schedule and coordinate the final oral examination. And getting everybody, you know, getting everything on my, what's it called? My graduate council? I think committee, that's what it was called. Yeah, not council. Although it could be considered a council. So, a lot of the feelings of, you know, needing to overcome something very large when you feel very small, I felt like I almost had to write about what I had learned to overcome that during the process of writing that novel. Let's see here. And any kind of like mental health lesson that I would learn later, I would also continue to incorporate within the text. Yeah. Okay. So there's the second one. Okay. Your first biggest writing project came after you dropped out of college, okay. .6 months or so. That's actually a good breadth of time. And I think I had when I was writing, I also just had a pretty good amount of free time to just write about a lot of stuff. And I think the yeah, the coordination between myself and the first set of beta readers was trying to think here. What's what kept me going in like the 2018 and 2019, which were the hardest months, was some of the hardest months in my early adult years, I would say. Your plan then was to go into psychology, okay. Yeah, it does. I think it was just like I could actually just be honest, you know. One of the things that that Mama Android has always told me is that I'm one of the most honest people that she's ever met. And I don't know exactly where that stems from. Honestly, I mean, like, I kind of agree with her, really. But it's just that whenever I express feelings, I don't really want to shy away from expressing them. Let's see here. Actually, does pretty good here. Let's see what else is there. Yeah. Bouncing back and forth between the beta readers was an interesting time, too. That also produced some of the most interesting feedback that I had ever seen with the novel. There was an early reader whom I think was trans. And but they brought this up because they brought this point up because it was one of the most. It was in regards to how Marcus was described in the story originally. And I think I may have mentioned this to the Avatar crew, but Marcus was originally described as a transhuman, as opposed to a post-human as he is described now. And they were saying that somehow trans people would probably take offense to that kind of nomenclature for an advanced human species, because some trans people will also consider themselves to be transhuman or something like that. And I remember just being absolutely flabbergasted by this remark, and I'm like, okay, you know, I just for those people who are new to me, okay, I am total. I mean, like, I'm a cross-dressing maid. I'm absolutely in the LGBT community, so don't get me wrong. That's not what I'm complaining about here. It was the thing was that the logic was just so confusing for this. I think it was eventually just changed to post-human because of just like transhuman could be considered to be too vague, I think. What am I looking at here? I'm just scrolling up and down on the dress here. Let's see. Maybe I could do... Yeah. there, it's like there was another interesting remark from, I think, there was like a middle schooler who read the story, and they were going over the part where Gwen has her vision for the first time. And they were remarking over the fact that, like, why doesn't Gwen consider solipsism? Which, if you don't know what that means, it's a fancy word that means thinking that your perspective is the only true perspective on how you view the world, I think. Or something like that. And I was just like, well, I get what you're trying to tell me, but that's not the objective of the story here. I knew what I wanted to do to arrive at the superpower for Gwen and the girls, but solipsism was not really the route that I wanted to take. Plus, it also sounded very convoluted. Let's see, should I have text on the side of the dress? Let's see, that's what I'm trying to consider here. Oh, I've gone through let's see, I've gone through well, I'm gonna rotate this here. Whoops. So I'm just gonna rotate. Oh, does that make it fuzzy? Oh, shoot. Well, what I can do, I can just write out the functions themselves here. Very tiny, like I hope. I've gone through about, I want to say, I want to say 6 individual readers before arriving at the copy that it is now. And most of all of those readers were found through the NaNoWriMo website, which they no longer support the beta reading sharing anymore, but and so I had to try and, go back to friends and family for reader feedback. So, which is the current iteration right now. Actually, I should probably make this equation. See how that looks. Looks a little okay. A little bit long scripture, really. Of course, I'm having to work against the fold on the fabric there. As a layer. that look? Okay. What's the best way to get to the honest truth? I feel that. How do I want to do the top? I'm gonna keep saying this, but oh, you know what? I know what I should do. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna take a Greek letter and make it all fancy. See, I just need to remember. Let's see. Just need to look up the Greek letter. Let's see. Quite epic music going on here. But I'm gonna try and draw it myself. Just as a weird flex, but you know, I want to try drawing it myself. I think whenever I write, I think it's not my style of writing is obviously going to come across as maybe a little strange, but it's based off of the cadences and things that I think flow naturally with my own like mental narration, I think you could say. Like, this sounds about right in, you know, how I think it should be narrated. And then, what will end up happening, obviously, is that, I'll submit it to readers, and some of them will say, like, oh, obviously, like, this, this sounds a bit strange. Why are you writing like this? This sounds so odd. And, like, I don't really know what to tell you. Like, it's just... Like, some of it could be attributed to me writing so much nonfiction for my graduate career. And that might be why I can come across a little mechanical in nature, but otherwise, you know. But then again, you know, Asimov also had a scientific background, and he wrote lots of fiction. So, just because you have a scientific background doesn't mean it's impossible to really make a fictional book. You know, you might think differently than most other writers. And the dictation may not be exactly what is conventional by most other writers, but it is your voice. The one thing I did have to do, I think, based off of, I think there was an English, it was a, it was a, it was an editor, it was a working editor that did beta reading on the side, and they did a lot, and they'd like to produce a lot of fantasy, and so I did a beta read trade with them at one point, and they were telling me to avoid doing anything with an omniscient point of view, and to try and make it, which is more or less making the narration sound as if we're looking at everything from I want to say, like, not necessarily a godlike view of what's going on, because you are the writer and you're meant to, you know, detail the background and the setting and everything as they happen, opening and closing the curtains, as they say. But it is just seeing everything kind of all at once in a scene, or detailing everything that happens all at once in a scene. Something like that. I'm trying to think of the right way to say it, but it was saying, but the editor was saying, avoid doing that and focus more or less on how a particular character is viewing this scene being described. So I'll choose a character like Gwen, or Emily, or Winona, and then the voice or the lens of that particular chapter will be solely on that character. And I felt like that helped me deviate a little bit less from the more mechanical side that I like to write with an omniscient narrator. So anyway, and they helped nail down a bunch of different tidbits that I had to really hammer down on. I think there was also, like, the use of was and has in as far as narration goes. They were really they knew their shit. They were the most experienced like reader I think I've ever had. I think, God, they even had I even asked them if they had a price for editing, and indeed they did. Indeed they did. And theirs was on the low end of things. So let's see here. How'd that look? How'd that look? Aw. Let's see. Can I make a heart shape out of that? That's the question. Can I make a heart shape out of that? I think that might be a bit strange, but, let's see. Give it a little frill. Give the size symbol like some frill to it. Let me do that. You know what? What the hell? Let's see what happens. How that looks. I'm just gonna do it on a different layer, just so that I can just easily remove it. Why isn't? Oh, it's the equation. Image size. Okay, I can draw it. I don't know if this version of, well, like, obviously, Aldous, you're the one, you're one of the people reading it, the current version. Um, but I would not. I would say that, like, the version you're reading is probably going to be pretty close to the final version of the story. There's very little left narrative-wise that I really want to suss down. Um, and all that's left right now are the voice details and everything else that you've been going over. How does that look far away? I think my attitude towards the reach of this supposed novel is more or less like the same attitude that I have with, as Mr. Rogers did with his neighborhood. And the same thing with this VTuber channel. And that is, I don't really care if it's just one. Our country is so obsessed with, has this obsession with numbers. And yet and yet he would somehow touch thousands of people, millions through his programming. It's more or less like a very selfless attitude that I wish to have with my own writing. See, how's that looking here? Looking okay, I think. I guess it's a little hard to cross that, that it is embroidered in there, but, Hmm. Oops. Yeah, maybe not that. Let's see. Again, how should I stylize this? Well, let's continue that later. And I'm gonna actually trace in the figure here. Yeah. There's, like, there's a lot of debate between writers about, about writing for profit. Whether or not you should write for profit or shouldn't write for profit. But at the end of the day, that writing for profit is it is a I hate to sound like a like a junkie here, but it is a very capitalist idea. Yeah. Yeah. I think I got a fairly decent hand out of that. Let me see. Oh. Well, we'll see. Personally, I think that'll it would take a lot of effort for that to happen, but that's a different topic, and I don't wish to go into that. So... Okay, that looks pretty good, I think. What other aspects of the equation could I probably do? Let's see. Oh, wait a minute, hold on. Maybe I could put delta P and delta X here, maybe? Let me think on that. Let's see. Or, you know what, actually, maybe I'll put that, like, on, maybe on the collar, like, have it embroidered on the collar. Like, on the equation layer, just have... So this was actually something that I talked about with Mama Android before I started the stream. And she had sent me a clip, I think in some movie, that was dramatizing I think maybe the life of Albert Einstein, and he's talking with Niels Bohr about the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. I think I might actually remove this thing here because I think it's distracting on the dress. But so to reiterate what that means, okay. So I'm actually going to pull out Griffiths here once again for Introduction to Quantum Mechanics. And this was the explanation that that I had to quote to help with Mom's understanding of it, because it doesn't make any sense logically that how do you lose information on one... Oh, don't give me that. Don't give me that. Don't give me that. I'm doing a quantum mechanics themed dress. I get to talk about whatever I want. But I'll at least explain what she was confused by. So she was confused by the fact that so you lose so you have a particle in a box, and every time you measure it, like if you try and measure where it's going, you lose certainty in where it is. And conversely, if you try and measure where it is, you lose information of where it's going. It's like, how does that even work? Like, why does it work that way? Because it does defy conventional logic. And then I was like, okay, well, there's got to be a good example to pull up, because maybe Griffiths does have something. Okay. So, this is going to be... it's going to take maybe maybe 30 seconds to read, or 30 seconds to a minute to read. So imagine that you're holding one end of a very long rope, and you generate a wave by shaking it up and down rhythmically. If someone asked you precisely where is that wave, you'd probably think that he was a little bit nutty. The wave isn't precisely anywhere, because it's spread out over 50 feet or so between the two ends. On the other hand, if he asked you what the wavelength is, you could give him a reasonable answer. It looks like it's about 6 feet between peaks. By contrast, if you gave the rope a sudden jerk and produced a relatively narrow bump traveling down the line, this time the first question, where is the wave, is a sensible one, and the second one, what is the wavelength, seems nutty. It isn't even vaguely periodic, so how can you assign a wavelength to it? So, of course you can draw intermediate cases in which the wave is fairly well localized and the wavelength is fairly well defined, but there is an inescapable trade-off here. The more precise a wave's position, the less precise is its wavelength, and vice versa. So... and then it goes off into math at that point. So which I won't go into this video here. I'll probably go into that. I think I promised another new follower here, an actual quantum mechanics video on how that starts, or how that is conducted. And then she was asking, like, why do scientists busy themselves with this kind of thing, even though you can't precisely define how the world works at that scale? Well, the thing is that without quantum mechanics, most of the current technology that we have right now around us would be impossible to define or understand. All the computation, all the transistors in our electronics, all the integrated circuitry, all of the fluorescent lighting, all of the diodes in our electronics, all of the LEDs, all of the particle accelerators, all of the nuclear reactors around the world would be impossible to understand without quantum mechanics. All of neon lighting would be impossible to understand without quantum mechanics. So, one of the first things that you do as part of undergraduate physics is perform the hydrogen atom, because it's like the most basic real object that you can do when you learn about the Schrödinger equation. And knowing that blew me away as an undergraduate physicist. And because that's the first atom in, or the first element in the periodic table, it's like, oh my god, that's like the tip of the iceberg. And look how much work we had to do just to define that. Okay, I think I'm ready for coloring. I'm gonna put it underneath. Oh, I already had a layer for colors. Silly me. Anyway. Alright. For some reason I keep imagining greens, but I kinda wanna have this guy be, I don't know, I'm realizing I'm going back to the color scheme for the PlayStation, where it's just bright cyans and blues against a dark outfit. That's a good question. I kind of want to make this one like different colors at the very least. Like have this area be colored differently, this area be colored to the PS1 colors this time. PS1 doesn't have that many colors to it anyway. Yeah, PS1 is just gray. What loves gray? You know, there's a lot of like subcategories of Lolita too out there. If you that that are out there, I think, and some of them will involve gray. There's one called Kuro Lolita, I think, which is just black Lolita, and then there's Shiro Lolita, which is just white, lots of white, and they're meant to be differentiated away from Gothic Lolita, which is self-explanatory. Gothic tends to be very muted colors. Oh, hold on. My face. There we go. Monochrome goth. But I kind of want to make something colorful. You know, let's do gray, maybe with gold accents, maybe. I'm just trying to think of like a nice, let's see. Let's start with maybe, I kind of want to at least get this dress colored by the 2-hour mark. So it's a little bit. Let's see how I feel about continuing. Oh, crazy eyes? Oh, you did see them, yeah. Oh, well. Rainbow dress for Pride. You know, I have a free day on Monday, and I'm actually planning on doing Haven for the first time for Pride Month. I think that should actually be fun. I've heard so much about it, and people could devote on which kind of gay do you want to have me roleplay as, or go through. Do you want me to go through male gay or female gay. Because you can do either. I kind of like how this is going. If not, I can certainly, like, hue shift it. I'm also thinking that, like, making it cyans, like shades of cyan, might also work, too. Let's see. Let's see. It's another topic. Well, so our Tuesday anime nights, gosh, we finished, watching what was currently available for Kaiju number 8. And I really liked that one. Even though it starts off really well, leading into a nice second act. It hangs around in its second act for way too long. Otherwise, it actually is very good. And it still has a third season coming, and that is supposedly the final season of the show. The plan with words is very obvious because the main character is named Kafka. And he transforms into a kaiju after forcefully ingesting a kaiju monster bug thing, I guess. Like, he lives in a world where kaiju are, like, described, like, sorry, let me back up. He lives in a world where kaiju are given, like, fortitude numbers, like earthquake magnitudes or tornado scales. Like, that's, or hurricane scales, that kind of thing. He does not transform into a cockroach, however, he does transform into an homage to Godzilla, but very much more humanoid. The intro is absolutely fantastic. I think our watch crew just headbangs to that intro every single time. At least for the first season, because that's when it's shown. But it's all in English. Yeah. The intro and outros for both the first season and second season are all done in English. And they are dope as hell, I gotta say. There's a lot of themes of genetic engineering, as well as, reverse engineering equipment, military operations versus have become mundane. Actually, I think I might... Let's see. Change this guy. Actually, I like the... You know what? I think I kind of like the teal a little bit more. And then I'll make it a touch darker for the final layer. It is a shonen anime, but it does have the thing I don't like, where it keeps having flashbacks, where it keeps telling us crap instead of showing us crap. So, or the background characters, you know, on the sidelines watching the fight go on, and then they're like, "Oh my god, please explain this weird power that he's having," and then they explain it ad nauseum, and I'm just like, okay, just let us watch the fight for Pete's sake. You could say that this is welcome to shonen anime, but that doesn't really excuse, you know, bad writing. It's very cheap writing, and it's not altogether very great. And it's probably been a thing since Fist of the North Star, but... Yeah, anime for the blind. Oops. Ah! Whoops. Okay, so I kind of want to make... Go in line with the colors here. And I know you were joking about it, but I do want to do maybe a dark gray for at least this section of the blouse, maybe? Or the dress. Oops. What were we gonna jump to? I think... So, we have 3 members of our watch crew. The husband, wife, me, and then... I guess you could ostensibly say that there is a 4th and 5th member because of their kids. But... but... Xander is not self-aware yet, and... and daughter is focused on their tablet. So, and each one of us, I think, like, was established maybe years ago that each one of us kind of, like, as soon as we each have one selection for an anime that we watch 2 episodes of per night, ideally, and let's see, Kaiju number 8 was the husband's, and I think when we're finishing up, I can't remember which one we decided on after that one. But I know that later we were wanting to do I'm gonna actually do a... See, I kind of like the gray because it looks like it's glowing or something, maybe. That's what I'm thinking here. But ironically enough, we don't typically pick very long animes. I think the last one we had picked was Attack on Titan, and that took us about maybe a year and a half to finish at 2 episodes per night, something like that. It was just crazy. Um, and it was a good watch. It's worth it to watch it to the very end. I will say that, with some exceptions for the seasons, but otherwise it has a very nice, solid end. Um, that honestly does a great job at being like an anti-war piece. Um, the but I bring this up because we were definitely considering. I think one of us was definitely proposing Bleach, which I had never seen before. And I was like, do we really want to do Bleach? Do we really want to do Bleach? And I looked at like the fastest rate that we could probably do, and I think like I calculated at like if we were there for 2 episodes a night every week, at with no interruptions, it would take us 2.5 years, roughly, to complete all of Bleach. And my recollection of Bleach is the same as Prosidy's wife when he's explaining it to her. Just from memory, which I thought was pretty hilarious because he does it for Inuyasha and Naruto, which I thought was pretty funny. Because like, yeah, that's me. I'm. It's like I only know vague details about it. I know they have large swords. I know there's a character named Rukia who's very big waifu material for some reason. Um, let's see what else is there. They fight demons, I think. There's filler that we could skip. Yeah. One of our rules for older animes is that if we recognize that it's a recap episode, then we just skip it. That's what we normally do. Okay. Okay, well I'm gonna go. Well, I'll see how far this goes. This stream goes, because I'm approaching 2 hours in the stream. But it's no big deal. Oh, what was it? There was one that we were debating on whether or not we wanted to continue because we had watched the first seasons of it. Before we stopped for the animation department to catch up. And I think we had watched Jobless Reincarnation a few years, like maybe a year or so back. And it was fine. I just was getting really tired of isekai. I was getting very, very tired of isekai. And and this isekai in particular was fine. We had watched a number of other isekais, either before or after that. I think we had watched So I'm a Spider, So What? And that one was actually fun to watch. I liked that one. Then there was Reincarnated as a Vending Machine, which was... It's enjoyable, but it is extremely silly. None of these were my picks, by the way. See, I kind of want to make... How do I want to do... I think I like the color schemes so far on this. I think what I'll take is like either... I think I want to take like one of these colors and use it as some of the accents here. Actually, I'll use the light teal. Here. What else have we been... Let's see. Let's see. I'm actually gonna text my host and try and remember what we actually decided on watching to replace Kaiju number 8. Just very quickly. Hold on. Putting up messenger here while I'm doing this on the side. I think it might have been Freerun, actually, the new season of Freerun. I think it's just that we noticed that Freerun actually, the latest season at least, is much, much shorter than the first. What am I doing there? I completely got sidetracked and thought I was filling in the color for the collar, but no. Typically, I will tend to make blouses white-ish in color, just in general, because it's like they're a blouse. looks okay. Just trying to think on... I think I'm gonna continue with the dark gray color on this one here. Not fuzzy select, no. Is it not? That's annoying as hell. Actually, what I could do... that kind of works. Not really, though. Oops. Works a little bit better. Yep. Just so I can fit there. And don't worry, I'm gonna... See, my voice is getting a little bit tired, but so after this coloring, I might call it. Just kind of want to make sure. This might actually... I think, you know, you were joking about it, but the gray actually turned out to be very beneficial. I think I kind of like it. I kind of like how it looks. Yeah. I'm just gonna quote-unquote color in the text here. Just a little bit. Yeah, I think actually coloring the text there really works, I think. Let's see. Oh, I should probably fill in the gray there. Gosh. I don't know what I want to do for dinner tonight. I am more than likely... Well, I had that saffron rice that I talked about. So I might do something small. So it might just be a bowl of cereal, but... Yeah, because I'm kind of in the mood for something cold. You know, I actually might want to... I might actually give one of my characters this outfit. You know, I try to make the character figure like androgynous as possible, but making this kind of like a prom dress might actually be a very clever bit. I think this one is actually a little bit charming, I think. This one turned out to be very charming. Let's see. And I'm gonna... Maybe not that color for the skin, but let's see here. There we go. Just see how it looks under Caucasian skin color, but... So, this is another funny note about reader feedback. So this exact same person that gave me the transhuman feedback, I would later find him again, being able to read the story once again after it had gone through a couple of other readers, and I think I kept the phrase in, but because it's so innocent, but it was like, okay, so here's how it went. I think I had described Winona's hair as chocolate colored. I think I called her hair chocolate colored, and this reader was like, be careful when describing like body parts or colors in terms of food or something, because it can sound racially charged. And I'm just like, well, and then he gives me a Tumblr post. No joke. And then I was like, well, okay, I get what you mean. I can see why, you know, why that might be off-putting for skin color, but I'm talking about her hair color, and secondly, Winona's not black. So. Okay. Okay. I'll just leave the... Yeah. Actually, I might... Oops. Oh, God. Very tan. There we go. A little bit better. Caucasian color. Okay. Alright. That turned out pretty good, actually. And this was from me earlier, obviously, explaining to another person what I'm talking about with these things here. And I think incorporating the wave functions in here into this thing actually turned out pretty well. So, let's see. Yeah, I think the plan for right now is to wait a day for just to give myself a rest, and then we'll do another stream of Haven, however that long that will take, and Goody Two Shoes, because I want to see that completed. So, and I'll try and find what other activities I can do with you guys. I think there was, like, I have, because someone was thinking of doing an actual, like, formal lecture stream. I think I might try and compose that over the next week. So we'll see. Anyway, that is it for now. I'm gonna find dinner, probably getting a burger or a bowl of cereal. Two opposite ends of the spectrum, I know. But either way, it'll be fine with me. So, I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and thank you to the new viewers that have popped in. And if you're just popping in now, remember that, or if you need to know, if you're watching the VOD later on Twitch, know that my YouTube handle can be searched up by looking up Nuclear Maid Nelly, and I think it might be in my About section. Either way, that is it for me. Have a good night.